Okay. Good evening. This is Christina talking, and I welcome you to my discussion on corona insomnia. It's actually a word that physicians and researchers are starting to use, believe it or not. I have been studying how to get a good night's sleep for about 10 years, and as a nurse practitioner and a massage therapist, I combined Eastern and Western kind of both therapies to delve into this lifelong challenge and problem of sleep. Sleep is probably one of the top three pillars of health that we can tap into, and actually, I can help you with this. There are so many people that are now discovering the problems that we're having with sleep due to this pandemic. Several friends have reached out to me in the past couple of weeks. One distinctively, I remember telling me, I've tried bubble baths, I've tried the lo-fi beats, I've even, tried guided meditation, I've paid for virtual um, therapy, and I've even put dried lavender in my pillow, like in sachets and in the pillowcases. And she would stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m. and she would say, I mean, this is insane. I'm actually laying here looking at the ceiling for 5 months and ever since March. And she said that the lack of sleep is just driving me crazy. So I believe that being obsessed with everything with this pandemic, not only are we anxious, but there's so many different problems. There is a problem with being obsessed with everything. We don't know where anything is headed. We don't know where we're going to be going. We don't know where the end could be. There's we looked at the United States' response to this pandemic. It was very dismal, and to think of everything else on top of everything, there's a reason why we're not sleeping. So MDs and researchers are saying that this coronavirus is actually doing damage to people's sleep. And it's a term that they coined. It's hilarious. I think it's pretty right on target that coronasomnia, some experts call it, it's giving us public health ramifications. It's profound. It's creating these massive insomniacs. So what happens? Your productivity dives, right? You don't have much productivity. Or you have shorter fuses. You get anxious. You get upset. You get, wanting to fix everything, but with a shorter fuse. And your blood pressure goes sky high. There's also studies linked to more depression and anxiety. So it's easy to understand why people don't sleep. And I believe it's because of stress, obviously, and you're changing your routines. Also, your bank accounts, you're unemployed, they're strained. Children are at home. You're not having the same type of balanced schedules, let's say. Children are at home, parents are teaching children. It's a really difficult situation. So the days are lacking rhythm, and the social interaction isn't happening. So we go back to some solutions. I believe that the bedroom, now that it should be a sanctuary, but actually it has gotten to be a makeshift office. So you're having that watching TV or electronics are on a lot more longer in the bedroom, which it should be totally dark. And the blue light from TV is really bad, and also from the electronics. So we're not really, the bedroom is not really conducive to sleep anymore. So I think that also has a lot to do with it. And I would love to hear your concerns too, or things that you have noticed that have changed for you in your lives. Um, so patients before the pandemic, that had insomnia, now they're noticing that this actually have increased, and not only that, but nightmares have increased. So you've got more nightmares, and it's an epidemic. The COVID-19 crisis has actually made sleep, trying to get good sleep, an epidemic. So before the virus, they've done studies that 15% of people worldwide had insomnia. And definition of insomnia, in case you're wondering, is more than 3 times a week for more than 3 months, and even longer. So if you're having trouble sleeping more than 3 times a week, more than 3 months, then yeah, that would be definition of insomnia. So the impact of insomnia is so deep on the quality of life. It's enormous. And also, I've done some work on looking at prescriptions, and the sleep medications have increased also. Actually, they've done some research with Express Scripts, and they have noticed a 15% increase in prescription in sleeping pills that have gone sky high from mid-February to mid-March, which is when the pandemic started. So they did a 15-country project in Quebec, University of Quebec, and they noticed that insomnia complaints were 30% much higher, and now even coming from children, which I thought that was interesting. So they've also done studies in China and France and Italy, and they found that insomnia or poor sleep is in about 20% of these people. So shutdowns, not having routine, anxiety, stress, financial burdens. It's like when you hit the pillow, this sense of dread. I would love to hear your comments on that also. Feeling that you're not getting any type of relief. You're just winding and winding up when you're laying down. So it's almost as if something is really wrong with the world, like you can't really wind down. And it's a great, there's a great acronym. I'd love to share this with you. It's FED UP, and F is financial stress, so you have that. Emotional stress, you have a distance from others, right? You have unpredictability, you have personal and professional concerns. Those are all perfectly describing exactly what we're going through. Retirement plans, right? Your plans, you're losing your job, you're not employed. So those are all really negative stimuli, and it's toxic. It's like a toxic cocktail, And this pandemic, with the era that's happening now, we're noticing so many more people that are reaching out for help. So what happens? Your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm's affected by the daily routine. And let's say your meal times are all messed up, or sleeping longer. That can mess up your circadian rhythm. So social cues that are mixed up are circadian cues. So you have things that have been ripped away from you. You're not really going into the day knowing what's going to be happening, because things are turned upside down. And people are now noticing dreams that are almost like an apocalyptic dreams, which I thought that was interesting. They're actually finding that people are feeling they're stuck in a bunker, let's say, or they have food rations. They don't know where their next meal will come from. Or they wake up and they say, my God, I was wandering through this abnormal deserted city. Everything's like an apocalypse. And those dramatic or dynamic dreams, it's all due to heightened anxiety. So that's really important to know. And vivid dreams that people have, they're resulting from sleeping longer or later in the morning. Let's say people don't have to get up and run to work. So they're sleeping in longer. And they're not as restful, because dreams usually occur right before you wake up. So you're not as restful that time. So, a couple of tips that we can go through, and I'll touch more about this at another session, but I believe that if you can wind down at least an hour before you go to bed, electronics, everything, you shut that off, and you want to get some type of light exposure around 8 o'clock in the morning. That will actually help you achieve that the vitamin D, and also your uh, melatonin also will be increased. So you also have to make time for sleep. It's super important for you to get that right mindset that you do need sleep. And I would suggest not watching the news right before you go to bed. It's really difficult to hash all those negativities and things that are horrible on the news now, and you're watching that, and all of that has a lot to do with trying to wind down at bedtime. Self-care is super important, so you have to make yourself a priority. And I would love to hear what your sanctuary, let's say, would be. Some people actually say, they get the most rest by camping, going camping, or going outside in the nature and sleeping under the stars, under a crackling fire. I can just imagine how beautiful that must be. Some people can't do that, of course, but there's other ways that you can contribute to, obviously a good mattress and maybe some white noise. But those are some of the things that would help at this point in time. And I hope we can touch back again in a week or so, and we can talk about more involved issues with dreaming, and maybe ways to come up with your help on what would help you to get a good night's sleep. I hope you all have a good evening, and take care. Sweet dreams.